Before you listen to this story, I want you to do something. Take a moment and check the time on your phone. If it's anywhere close to 2:17 a.m., you might want to turn on the lights. Because 2 weeks ago, my phone rang at exactly 2:17 in the morning. And the name that appeared on the screen was someone who had been dead for 2 years. My sister. Her name was Emily. And what she told me during that call saved my life. But before I tell you about that night, you need to understand something about Emily. Because what happened to her was never supposed to be an accident. Emily was my younger sister. Only 2 years younger than me, but somehow she had always been the more responsible one. Growing up, she was the kind of person everyone trusted immediately. Teachers loved her. Neighbors adored her. And even complete strangers seemed comfortable talking to her after only a few minutes. Emily had this strange ability to make people feel safe. She had a soft voice, warm brown eyes, and a smile that could calm almost any situation. When our parents died in a car accident 8 years ago, Emily was only 19. I was 21. From that moment on, it was just the two of us. We didn't have much family left, so we leaned on each other for everything. Birthdays. Holidays. Bad days. Good days. Emily was always there. Sometimes she would call me late at night just to complain about work. Other times she would show up at my house with takeout and say, "Daniel, you look like you need food and terrible movies." Those nights became a tradition. Cheap takeout. Old horror films. And Emily making fun of how easily I got scared. Looking back now, those were probably the happiest years of my life. Emily worked at a small cafe near the edge of town. It wasn't a fancy place, but she loved it. She liked talking to the regular customers, learning their stories, remembering their usual orders. Sometimes when I visited, I would sit at the counter and watch her work. She moved quickly behind the espresso machine, laughing with customers and joking with her coworkers. Everyone there treated her like family. And Emily liked that. Our town was small. Quiet. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone else. Crime was almost non-existent. Nothing truly terrible ever happened here. At least, that's what we believed. Until the night Emily died. It happened on a stormy Thursday night. Emily had worked the closing shift at the cafe. She called me earlier that evening like she always did. "Hey," she said over the phone. "You still awake?" "Barely," I joked. "I've got work early tomorrow." She laughed. "You're getting old, Daniel." "I'm 2 years older than you." "Exactly." I could hear the cafe closing in the background. Chairs scraping the floor. Someone locking the door. Emily lowered her voice. "I'm about to drive home," she said. "It's raining pretty hard." That wasn't unusual. The road she used to get home ran along the side of the mountain outside town. It was narrow, winding, and dangerous during bad weather. "Drive slow," I told her. "I always do," she replied. Then she said something strange. Something I didn't think about until much later. "Daniel, if something ever happened to me." I interrupted her immediately. "Don't start with that." "I'm serious," she said. "Just promise me you'll answer your phone if I ever call you late at night." I laughed. "You already call me late at night all the time." "I know," she said softly. "But promise anyway." "Fine," I said. "I promise." She sounded satisfied. "Good," Emily replied. "Okay. I'll call you tomorrow." That was the last normal conversation I ever had with my sister. 3 hours later, my phone rang again. This time it wasn't Emily. It was the police. A calm voice told me there had been an accident. Emily's car had gone off the mountain road. They asked me to come to the hospital. But deep down, I already knew. When I arrived, the doctor didn't need to say much. Emily was gone. At least, that's what I believed. Until 2 weeks ago. When my phone rang at 2:17 a.m. And the caller ID showed the name. Emily. 2 weeks ago, something happened that I still can't fully explain. It was a quiet Tuesday night. The kind of night where nothing unusual ever seems to happen. I had gone to bed a little after midnight. I remember feeling exhausted from work that day. My job at the warehouse had been especially busy, and by the time I got home, all I wanted was a hot shower and sleep. Outside, the weather was calm. No rain. No wind. Just silence. The kind of silence that usually helps you fall asleep quickly. And that's exactly what happened. Within minutes, I was asleep. Or at least, I think I was. Because the next thing I remember was the sound of my phone vibrating against the wooden nightstand beside my bed. At first, I thought it was part of a dream. The vibration was faint. Soft. But it kept going. BZZZT. 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 Slow. Steady. Persistent. My eyes slowly opened. The room was completely dark except for the faint glow coming from my phone screen. I reached out lazily, still half asleep, and grabbed the phone. The screen lit up in front of my face. The time read. 2:17 a.m. And beneath the time was the name of the person calling. For a moment, my brain couldn't process what I was seeing. I blinked several times. Trying to wake up. Trying to clear my vision. But the name didn't change. It stayed there on the screen. Emily. My heart instantly began to race. For several seconds, I simply stared at the phone in disbelief. It had to be a mistake. Maybe someone else had Emily's old number. Phone companies recycle numbers all the time. It wasn't impossible. But something about the situation felt wrong. The name on the screen wasn't just a number. It was her contact. The exact contact that had been saved in my phone for years. With her picture. Her smiling face staring back at me from the screen. My hand started trembling. A cold feeling crept slowly up my spine. Part of me wanted to decline the call. To pretend it wasn't happening. But another part of me, the part that missed my sister every single day, couldn't ignore it. My thumb hovered over the screen. For a moment I hesitated. Then I pressed answer. Hello? My voice sounded dry and uncertain. For a few seconds, there was no response. Just silence. The kind of silence that feels heavy. Unnatural. I pulled the phone slightly away from my ear and checked the screen again. The call was still connected. The timer had started counting. 5 seconds. 6 seconds. 7 seconds. Then I heard something. Breathing. Soft. Uneven. Like someone trying to control their emotions. My heart began pounding harder. Hello? I said again. This time my voice was louder. More nervous. Then it happened. A voice came through the phone. Quiet. Fragile. But unmistakable. Daniel. The moment I heard it, every muscle in my body went rigid. It was Emily. There was no doubt about it. The same voice I had heard thousands of times before. The same gentle tone. The same way she always said my name. I sat up immediately in bed. My heart was beating so hard it felt like it might burst out of my chest. Emily. My voice came out as little more than a whisper. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence between us felt impossibly heavy. Then she spoke again. Daniel, listen carefully. Her voice sounded different than I remembered. Still recognizable. Still hers. but weaker. Distant. Like it was coming from far away. What's going on? I asked. How are you calling me? She ignored my questions. Instead, her breathing became faster. Almost panicked. Daniel, she said urgently. You need to lock your doors. A chill spread through my body. What? Lock your doors, she repeated. Her voice sounded strained now. Like she was struggling to speak. My mind raced for an explanation. Maybe someone was playing a cruel prank. Maybe someone was using a voice recording. But deep down, none of those explanations felt right. The voice sounded too real. Too emotional. Too scared. Emily, I said slowly. This isn't funny. Who is this really? But she didn't answer that question either. Instead, she said something that made my stomach twist. Someone is coming to your house. I froze. The room suddenly felt colder. What are you talking about? I asked. You need to lock your doors right now, she said again. Her voice was trembling. Almost desperate. I glanced toward the hallway outside my bedroom. Everything was dark. Quiet. Still. Emily, I whispered. How do you know where I am? There was a pause. A long one. Then she spoke again. But this time, her voice sounded different. Lower. More serious. I can see him. My heart skipped a beat. See who? For a few seconds, she didn't answer. Then I heard something strange through the phone. A faint sound in the background. At first I couldn't identify it. It sounded distant. Muted. Almost like an echo. Then it happened again. Knock. 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 3 slow knocks. I frowned. The sound was faint. Barely noticeable. But it was definitely there. Emily, I said. What was that? But before she could answer, I heard the sound again. This time, not through the phone. But from somewhere inside my house. Knock. 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 My entire body froze. The sound had come from the front door. And suddenly, I realized something terrifying. Whoever was knocking outside had arrived at my house at exactly the same moment my dead sister called me. My breathing became shallow. Slow. Daniel, Emily whispered through the phone. Her voice now filled with panic. Do not open the door. The knocking came again. Louder this time. More aggressive. Knock. 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 Every instinct in my body told me not to move. Not to speak. Not to make a sound. But my mind was spinning with questions. Emily, I whispered. How do you know about this? There was another pause. Longer this time. Then she said something that would change everything I believed about her death. The man outside your house. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Is the same man who killed me. My heart stopped. What? But before she could say anything else, the knocking suddenly stopped. And the call went completely silent. 2 years passed. Then 3 weeks ago, something impossible happened. It was a Tuesday night. A quiet one. I went to bed around midnight. Outside, the wind pushed tree branches against my windows. The house creaked occasionally. Nothing unusual. At least, at first. Then my phone started vibrating. I woke up slowly. Still half asleep. The vibration continued. Low. Constant. Annoying. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand and looked at the screen. The time read. 2:17 a.m. And the caller ID made my blood run cold. Emily. My mind immediately tried to explain it. Maybe someone had taken her old phone number. Maybe it was a scam. But deep down, something felt wrong. My hands trembled as I answered. Hello? At first there was only silence. Then I heard breathing. Slow. Uneven. And then a voice. Daniel. It was Emily. Exactly the same. I nearly dropped the phone. Emily. My heart was pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. Her voice sounded weak. Almost distant. Daniel, listen carefully. What's going on? I whispered. Her breathing became faster. You need to lock your doors. I sat up in bed. What? Lock your doors, she repeated urgently. A cold sensation spread through my chest. Emily, how are you doing this? But she ignored the question. Instead, she said something far more terrifying. Someone is coming to your house. My eyes moved slowly toward the hallway outside my bedroom. Everything was dark. Quiet. Who? I asked. But she didn't answer immediately. Instead, I heard a sound through the phone. A faint noise. Knocking. 3 slow knocks. I frowned. The knocking sounded distant. Like it was echoing through the call. Then it happened again. Knock. 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 But this time, the sound didn't come from the phone. It came from my front door. My entire body froze. Daniel. Emily whispered. Do not open the door. My throat felt dry. Emily, how do you know about this? There was a pause. Then she said something that shattered everything I believed. The man outside your house. Another pause. Is the same man who killed me. My mind went blank. What? The night I died. She said quietly. My car didn't lose control. I felt like the air had been pulled from the room. He pushed my car off the road. The knocking suddenly stopped. Silence filled the house. Heavy. Oppressive. Then the call ended. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. A text message appeared. Unknown number. It said, why didn't you open the door? My chest tightened. Another message appeared. Your sister opened hers. The next morning police cars filled the street. Apparently a man had been seen wandering the neighborhood around 2:30 a.m. Trying door handles. Looking for unlocked houses. Security cameras captured him approaching my house. Standing at my front door. Knocking 3 times. Then suddenly, he stepped backward. As if someone had whispered in his ear. Then he ran. Later that day, police reviewed the camera audio. And they heard something chilling. At 2:17 a.m. A faint female voice whispered near my front door. 2 words. Don't open. Since that night, my phone sometimes rings again. Always at 2:17 a.m. The caller ID always shows the same name. Emily. And every time I answer, I hear the same warning. Daniel, lock the door. So if your phone ever rings late at night, and the caller ID shows someone who shouldn't be alive anymore, answer carefully. Because sometimes, the dead are not calling to haunt you. Sometimes, they are calling to save your life. Sometimes the scariest things in life are not the monsters we imagine, but the truths we refuse to see. Daniel spent 2 years believing his sister died in a simple accident. But that night at 2:17 a.m., he realized something terrifying. The person he loved the most was still trying to protect him. Even from the other side. Because sometimes love doesn't disappear when someone dies. Sometimes, it becomes something stronger. Something that refuses to let you fall into danger. This story reminds us of something important. Life is fragile. The people we love can disappear at any moment. So don't wait too long to tell them how much they matter. Call them. Talk to them. Spend time with them. Because one day, their voice might only exist in memories. And if the impossible ever happens, if someone you lost somehow reaches out to you again, listen carefully. Because sometimes the dead don't come back to haunt us. Sometimes, they come back to protect us. Now I want to ask you something. If your phone rang tonight, and the caller ID showed the name of someone who had already passed away, would you answer the call? Or would you let it ring? Tell me your answer in the comments. And if you enjoy real horror stories like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Because the next story I'm about to share is even more disturbing. And it happened in a hospital room, where a camera recorded something that should never exist. So make sure you're subscribed. And remember, if your phone rings at 2:17 a.m. tonight, you might want to think carefully before answering.